I know most people hate interviews, but I've been interviewing for a new position at my company the last couple weeks. And one of the conversations that I had in this process made me realize that I think there's a bit of a flaw in the idea of personal branding that you see all over the internet nowadays. And the idea of personal branding being that you define your story and you define your values, and then you live them out both online, in writing or in content, and in the workplace. And that coupling helps serve to sort of connect some of the dots that you might not realize exist in your experience and ultimately open doors for you that wouldn't have been open otherwise. And you'll see that advice given from really reputable sources like Harvard Business School. But I think where it's lacking, what I've realized is that once you've created that opportunity and once you've gotten in the door and you're on the team and you're doing work, trying to maintain that identity and stick to that personal brand and continue to build it when your priority is really to perform and get work done can actually hold you back, which is a bit of a tragedy considering you've put so much effort into this one thing in order to become a great professional. So grab a tea, grab a coffee, and let's have a chat. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name's Christian. I'm a CPA and senior financial analyst, and this channel is about taking curiosity seriously, both in your personal life and in your career, to really maximize the learning that you do over your life. And I think that can provide a lot of meaning and a lot of value and ultimately success. Obviously, reputation and skills are fundamentally important to the success that you have in your career. But I think what gets missed in the personal branding argument is that these things are actually just the fruits of your labor, and they aren't necessarily something that you consciously curate and maintain. They grow naturally by living out those values and applying your skills. A brand is an ideal. It's a perfected, inanimate, curated fiction of values and ideals with total control over every touch point that it has with its audience. And that's what makes it an effective marketing tool. And that's why it's effective as a marketing tool for individuals to advance their career. But I also think that is what makes it a poor model in terms of how you should actually behave in the workplace. Because people are not brands, and trying to curate and maintain an image in the workplace is actually something that is just going to set you back, both in terms of how you are able to make an impact, as well as your own ability to actually grow and develop as a professional. And I think the contrast comes from the difference between the ease of maintaining an image online versus living in the moment and providing true value to the team that you work on in real life. And the value that you create as a professional ultimately comes from the humility to put your ego aside, to sometimes forget about what you think about yourself or what your story is, and to simply focus on the problem at hand. So let me start with a very oversimplified example, and then I'll explain from there the point that I'm trying to share with that example. So imagine you join an organization or you join a new team in your organization as the finance lead on a team that contains some sales professionals, some store managers, and some other people. And really what you're trying to do is get up to speed so that you can help them build out the model for their business case and then potentially get that approved, and the project can go forward from there. And everyone is working together and trying to flesh out their ideas for this and what it means and what the impacts will be. And because it's a corporate environment, there is a lot of jargon and acronyms flying around, and the sales team keeps referring to ATS. The sales lead thinks ATS could increase by 20%, where the store managers think that it would only be maybe 10%. So your job is to sort of take their estimates and then model out the different scenarios. The problem is that because you're new to the team, or maybe you just haven't heard it before, but you don't know what ATS means, and you Google it off the side of your desk, but there's like all these different possible meanings and it could be a dozen different things. So you sort of have this trade-off that I think a lot of people have been in before, where you can ask what ATS means, but you are the finance professional, and sometimes there is a lot of expectation on that role, and you have some personal pride in your expertise, and asking that question might be a little bit embarrassing. But it's also a combination of your ego, your image, and your earning capacity all sort of wrapped up in this personal brand or story that you've told yourself and you've tried to portray online and you're continuing to try to portray in the workspace. So maybe you just stay quiet and you reassure yourself that you can figure it out later. So in that situation, there were only really two options. There was option A, which was to project competency in the moment and then try to operate in the dark and ultimately underdeliver, either by doing the wrong thing, which is worse, but probably by needing to ask the question later, which has wasted time. And then option B is to seem uncertain in the moment, clarify the ambiguity, and then deliver results on time or without delay. Now, I'm sure after I say that, it's very obvious what the right solution is. Because to be valuable as a professional, there are basically only two things you need to do. Do good work and do it fast. And obviously, if you choose option A, you are prioritizing your own image over asking what ATS means. And that achieves neither good work nor fast work effectively. Now, instead, let's say you go with option B and you ask what ATS is and someone responds with, oh, it's average transaction size. Okay, cool, you know what that is. You just always used ATV, or average transaction value. But then someone else on the team chimes in and they say, oh, I didn't realize what that meant either. If that's the case, you should probably consider this thing or this thing over here that we're also working on that you might have been unaware of. So by asking in one moment, you have made the project faster and probably made the outcome better in one moment. Very easily. And again, I know that is a very simple example and it's very obvious what the right one is. But I think it's really important to understand that asking the stupid question is not a sign of weakness and it's not a sign of incompetence. The way that I think about it is that asking the stupid question is just risk mitigation. It's a prioritization and an act of protection for the result and the solution to the problem. And despite any dent to your brand, it is the most professional thing that you can do. And when I lay it out like that, I'm sure that there is not a single one of you that thinks what I've just said is revolutionary or even maybe insightful. But I'm a few years into my career now, and I've seen that happen many times. I've seen it happen with people who are just at the beginning of their career, and I've seen it happen with people in the middle of their career. I've definitely done that before as well, especially in the beginning of my career when you have insecurity about your own skills and your own knowledge. And even if you're not in your career yet and you're a student, I'm sure you've been in class where you didn't understand something and didn't ask about it. All that said, I do think I've improved at this a lot over the last few years. And now what I want to share with you is the mindset shift that I learned when I was working at a Big Four accounting firm. And I even had a chance to very briefly work in the restructuring department of the Big Four accounting firm. And they had a motto that I really absorbed in my short time working with them that I come back to all the time and has really stuck with me over the years. And that is to drive the bus. Basically, in a restructuring engagement, and really any complicated professional project, there are a lot of different stakeholders, and you have to work on a team, both internally, whether within your department or in the team that you usually work with, and then usually with other teams outside your normal sphere of interaction, whether or not it's at the same company or it's with external stakeholders or partners or clients. All of these people that you work with have expertise and knowledge that they bring to the table, but they are in the bus. You have to drive the bus. That means accepting responsibility to get everyone to the destination and to get them across the finish line. Anyone can be on the bus, but you have to be the driver. So the implication of that is that if something needs to be done, you either have to do it or you have to make sure that it gets done. You have to make sure someone knows that they need to do it and follow up if it's not getting done. If something is unclear, you need to take the time to understand it and to be able to explain it in a way that is logical and makes sense. And ultimately, it's a mindset that increases pressure. You will probably feel more stressed by adopting the mindset of the bus driver. But But the beauty of it is that by shifting away from having a personal brand that you're trying to maintain or being seen as the expert on a certain subject matter as part of the project, by becoming the bus driver, your perspective changes to not being about you anymore. It is simply about getting the bus to the destination, and that results in focusing on the problem and finding the solution. And the irony is that by doing that, you will learn very valuable new knowledge, and you will develop a way stronger reputation that you can carry with you going forward. And again, while I think personal branding is great as a marketing practice for yourself, being in the room and doing the work requires almost the exact opposite mindset. It requires the humility to deprioritize your image, ask for help if needed, admit an error early if you make an error, which probably will happen, and turn or change direction if you need to. All of those actions bring clarity to the ambiguity that really great professionals do on a day-to-day basis. Now, if you're really listening and you're a proponent of personal branding, I think you might argue back and say, well, your personal brand could be someone with a small ego and willing to ask questions to really get to the bottom of things, and someone who prioritizes accuracy and getting to the solution. But what I'm trying to say is that that framing misses the point. A brand is static for the most part. A person is complex, fluid, and free thinking. And our world is rapidly changing, and it is accelerating in terms of the pace of change. The value that you bring as a person in the workplace, it comes from the ability to learn, maneuver, and adapt. And that is not easy, and it requires a focus that you can't achieve if you're thinking about how you appear. So those are my thoughts. Maybe you disagree, maybe you agree. Let me know in the comments. I could be wrong. Either way, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.